Hello there, Leah Wilson-Felis here. This will be a 30 to 45 minute lower body stretch video. So we will be focusing on everything from our waist downward. But as you know, everything is connected in our body, so there will be some movements where our upper body is utilized as well. So I hope you enjoy this little video just focused on the lower body. So if you have available a block or a blanket or even a pillow at home available, that might come in handy, or at some point maybe even a yoga strap to elongate your arms. So we'll begin this video laying on our back in supine position. So find your way down to your yoga mat and lay on your back. Before I do that, I'll take my little mala off. Alright, so we're going to start our practice laying on our back. We want our feet to be separated to about hip distance, or maybe a little bit wider than hip distance, so that your feet are closer to the outer edges of your mat than they are together. And then we want to reach down and see if we can tickle our heels with our fingertips. So that's how we know we're in the right alignment. Now you don't want your knees to knock together, you want them to stay apart. And so if it helps you, you can actually use your yoga block by placing it together between the knees, and that way your knees never touch. They stay nice and in alignment. So from here we're going to start some very gentle pelvic tilting. So you want to roll your tailbone down towards the floor, and that's going to lift the lower back area. And then we're going to roll our tailbone and sacrum up, so that our lower back, our lumbar area, is flattening. So let's roll our tailbone down. That's called anterior pelvic tilt. And then we'll roll backward, and that's called a posterior pelvic tilt. So let's just go back and forth a couple times, lifting the tailbone and dropping the tailbone. That's my dog snoring. So what we'll do here is we're going to start to work with our breath. So inhale as you lift your tailbone, the back is flat. Exhale and roll your tailbone down, lifting your low back. Let's go back and forth, tilting up, inhale, tilting down, exhale. Tilting up and tilting down. Let's do one more. Now we'll remove the block if you've chosen to use that. And we're now going to do something called rolling bridges. So, still keeping yourself in that same position, we'll begin to lift the hips by pressing into the feet and activating the thighs. This does do a natural lumbar spine traction, elongation there. But as we do that, let's lift our arms either up to the ceiling or even up overhead. And then we'll start to rotate the arms back down to your sides as you drop your hips down. So let's do it together. Inhaling, lifting the hips, arms reach up or overhead. Exhale, rotating the arms back down, hips back down to the mat. Inhale, rolling up. Exhale, rolling down. Let's do 3 more with your breath. Beautiful work. Laying down, we're going to start to work into some hip openers. So you want to take your right leg, and we're going to create a figure 4, crossing the outer ankle of your right leg over the top of your left thigh or knee. And you want to be creating a figure 4 with the legs. You can certainly wiggle out that right hip a little bit, see where there's any tension in that joint. And if you need to increase the stretch at all, you're not feeling enough there, then you might reach your hands around your left thigh. So you can pick up your left foot, grab on behind your thigh, perhaps grabbing on over your shin. Some people like to lengthen the left leg and get into the hamstring a little bit there. wherever you've chosen to be, let's rock from right to left just a little bit so that you're really starting to notice the stretch in the outer right thigh, maybe your low back a little bit. You'll feel it where you're holding tension in your low back or your hip joint. So if you don't have a lot of tension, you might not feel a whole lot of stretch. Let's bring our left foot back down to the floor. We're going to take this right hand and reach up for our right foot and try to step our foot up on the ceiling. My knee is still bent, so my knee is being pulled down to my right elbow or my right underarm. And this is called half happy baby. If you'd like, you can take your left leg and lengthen it out and down so that you're laying kind of flat on the left side. That will increase your stretch. And remember, if it's not quite possible to reach your foot yet, then maybe you reach your outer ankle. Maybe you reach for behind your knee and help the knee pull back. So we have to modify for whatever is in our practice at this moment. So let's just take one more breath here. We'll slide our left foot back up to center, bring the right foot back down, and we're going to do some window wipers as an intermission. So towards the left and towards the right, back and forth. As you go towards the left, the knees are going to roll over to the left. Your right low back and hip is lifting off the ground. So let's pick up the left foot if it's available for you. If it doesn't hurt your knee at all, take your left foot and hook it over top your right knee. So this is going to help that right outer hip to stretch a little bit, getting into an internal rotation of that right thigh. You might feel a little bit of something happening in your right low back, and that's good. But if anything ever hurts, that's your indication to back up. Your body doesn't need to be in pain. We want this stretching to feel good. Let's unwind the legs. Maybe roll them over to the right and back to the left and back to the right. And we'll come back to center and switch sides. So now we'll take our left foot, pick it up and cross the outer ankle or outer lower leg over top the right knee or right shin. You're welcome to stay exactly there. So if you're feeling good in that left hip, you can stay right there. If you want to increase your stretch at all, you might reach for your right pant leg and help pick your foot up off the ground. Maybe you reach behind your thigh. Some people like to lengthen the right leg. Some people can kind of reach over their right shin, really squeezing the calf into the hamstring. And wherever you've chosen to be, whether your right leg is soft and bent or straight, rock your whole body, your legs, from right to left. Keep your back and your head and shoulders somewhat grounded so that it's just your legs doing the work here. When I do this stretch as I go towards the right with my lower legs, it increases my stretch. When you've had enough, it doesn't need to be now, you can go for a couple more breaths if you need to, but when you've had enough, let's bring our right foot all the way back down to the ground, and we're going to pick our left foot up, reach up with your left hand, grabbing on for your left ankle, behind your left knee, or reaching up for your left ball of your foot or the heel. We're going to come into that half happy baby. So this is a nice modified version with the right knee still bent. If you'd like to increase your stretch, take your right leg out, ground down through that heel, through that calf, and see what you can discover in the leg. Any movement is welcome. So try bending, try straightening that left leg a couple times, just see where you feel a stretch. See if it's different than the right side. From this point, we'll drop that foot back down, bring our right foot back up, and we're going to do some window wipers again, to the right, to the left, to the right, and to the left. This time when we go to the right, let your knees just kind of drop over to the right, see if that's enough stretch for you. you're welcome to stay right there. If you want to add a little bit more in that left hip, then take your right foot and hook it over the top of the outside of your left knee. And that will internally rotate that hip joint, that femur. And we'll start to stretch it out. Let gravity do the work here. The more that you can kind of relax in the pose, the more benefit you'll receive from the posture. And when you have had enough, go ahead and unhook your right foot, bring your knees back up to center. We'll go back to the left, back to the right, and back to the left with the legs one more time before they come back to center. All right, so from here, let's give ourselves a little hug by picking our feet up. Grab onto the top of your knees or interlace your fingers there. Some people like to go behind the knees. And you'll just kind of massage your lower back into the floor a little bit, do some little circles. I've heard them called sacral circles, where you're massaging your sacrum onto the floor. Beautiful. From here, lengthen both legs up, flex your toes, pull them back, pressing your heels to the ceiling or out in front of you. Point your toes, and then flex them again, and point them again. Nice, a couple more like that, just flexing and pointing, maybe doing circles with your feet, with your ankles. Some of us have those little spots in our ankles and feet where they pop every time you do that motion. So just bringing awareness to wherever that might happen, or things might be shifting. Beautiful. Bend your knees. Pull your knees apart so that your toes are still kind of touching, but your knees are apart. And we're going to rock from side to side. So this is a beautiful modified happy baby. Since we did half happy baby on each side, we're going to do a full one here. So again, you can grab your hands behind your knees, pulling your elbows back into the floor. You could reach your hands up for your ankles and pull your knees back for your elbows. Or the full posture would be using peace fingers and grasping onto the big toes and pulling back into the knees so that the feet appear to be flat on the ceiling and your knees are pulling back into the shoulders, into the ribs, side body. You can rock a little bit. Just like a baby who's just found their feet. And from here, feet come together. We're going to do a couple rocks so that we can bring ourselves up to seated. So I like to bring my legs up and back and forward. And then I'm going to pull on my knees and kind of do that back and forth a couple times until you have the momentum to bring yourself up to seated. So however you'd like to sit here, take a moment. Here's where we're going to move into the waist just a little bit because our ribs attach to our hips through the waist area. So ground through your fingers. Drop your right hand into the mat and the left hand will reach out and up. Start to collapse into that right side body. The left hand is reaching overhead. Take a couple breaths and feel how the ribs connect down into your hip. This can be done with straight legs too, so the legs can be straight here. Take an inhale and fan your left hand back to center, ground yourself. Let's do it on the other side. So just making sure the right sit bone does not lift off the floor. Left hand grounds, right hand sweeps up and over. From there, we do not want to collapse into that left shoulder. We want to depress it, lower it down. So bend your elbow and give into that side body. Reach with the right arm and take a breath. Take more than one, about 3 to 6 breaths in each posture. And with an inhale, fan your way back up. Both hands reach up to the sky. We're going to be stretching the side body ribs here. So climbing ropes, reach up with your left hand and then up with your right hand, up with your left, and the opposite might shrug down to your side body. So just reaching up, seeing what you feel there. All right, and then from here with the legs straight out. So if you have them crossed, lengthen the legs out. Lengthen your hands up to the ceiling. Straighten your back. Present your heart. And start to fold over top of your legs, bringing your hands onto your toes, or maybe your ankles, shins, knees. This is where if you have a strap handy, you might wrap that strap, a rope strap or a tube sock, around the bottom of your feet. And we want to be isolating the hamstrings, which attach behind the knee joint and come up to the ischial tuberosity, which is right where your sit bone is. That's right where everything attaches. So that's where we want to feel it. But you might also feel it in your calf muscles or in your back, because you might notice that the hamstrings are right in the middle of your calf and your back. So they are directly correlated. Now we'll come back to this. So let's roll back up to seated. Alright, so we're going to keep our right leg straight and our left leg is going to bend. We do this one a lot. It's called head to knee position. So if your left knee does not bend like this, then you might take your blanket or your block and give it a little lift, or you might just kind of extend it out and kind of bring it off to the side so that we're just focusing on the right leg. Big inhale up to the sky, lengthening up. Rotate gently towards the right and fold over top just your right leg. Start to bow your head down. And again, in each posture, we try to take about 3 to 6 breaths. Relax your upper body. Let your shoulders be loose, your neck, your head. Remember, we're just trying to focus on our lower body. Beautiful. Come on and up and slide back to center. We're simply going to take our right leg and slide it outward a couple inches. For some of you, it might be a couple feet. So you want space between your left foot and your right thigh. Some people like to place a block there in between the foot and the thigh so that they don't come back together. Now I already feel plenty of stretch. Keep the right toes lifted up. Keep the left toes flexed as well, so now your legs are active, your knees are protected. Sits bones, those ischial tuberosities, are going to stay on the floor as you reach your belly button towards your left foot. And that will open up the right inner thigh. If you can, see if you can close your eyes here. Direct some awareness to that right inner thigh. Act as if your breath is like a balm, like a soothing salve. And with every exhale, smearing that balm over that stretched area where you're feeling just a bit of discomfort. Remember, pain is a whole different indication. Pain means release. Discomfort means we're growing. So let's bring ourselves back to center here. Our center posture will be Baddha Konasana, so feet come together in the center. Now I feel a little lopsided now because the right leg has been very stretched, but the left one has not. So let's do the left leg now to even things out. So we'll take our left leg, stretch it out. Big inhale with the upper body towards the ceiling. Rotate towards the left slightly and fold over top your left leg, reaching for your toes or your ankle, your shin, your knee. Use a strap. And we'll start to relax the upper body. We're just focusing on the legs, the hips. So lower your head. Relax your shoulders. And we'll take about 3 to 5 or 6 breaths here. You're welcome to add any movement in the stretches, a little bit of rocking. Cats and cows always feel good too, or just finding stillness. I've always said if you can't find stillness in your body, you won't find it in your mind. So learn to quiet the body, quiet the mind. Let's roll back up to center. we'll take that left leg and just kind of scooch it out to the left a little bit. Some people only go 2 inches. Some people have quite a bit of room there. If you'd like, you can certainly use the block to create space between your right foot and your left thigh. Activate your legs by flexing your feet. Sit up tall, keep your sits bones rooted in the ground, and lean your belly button towards your right foot. Inner thigh starts to kind of catch on fire there. Really stretching, so give yourself permission to back up a little bit, find that stretch a little deeper, see what you can feel, see what you can find. And if you need less stretch, then always bring yourself up or add movement. Little rocking from right to left does feel pretty good, and it just changes the sensation enough to be able to handle the position for a bit longer. And from here, let's back it up to center and come back to our center seated posture, Baddha Konasana. Feet come together, knees apart. Now things are a little bit more even. So grab onto your toes, grab onto your ankles, or a gentle bit of weight on the tops of the knees. So you don't want to be pushing. We want to be feeling a stretch in the inner thigh. And if you're feeling that stretch in the inner thigh, what you're experiencing is called tension. It's muscle tension that is keeping you from the full expression of the posture. If you're feeling some sort of sensation on your outer leg instead of your inner thigh, what you might be experiencing is called compression. And that's where your bone hits bone and there's nowhere else for you to go. That's just where your bones hit, that's how your body's made, and unfortunately there's no amount of stretching that can change the way that your bones are structured. So if you're feeling it here in inner thigh, you can work a little bit deeper. If you're feeling in the outer thigh, then that's just where you're at. So wherever you are in your posture, you might just sit there, sit with that sensation, or to deepen the sensation, bend through your elbows, allow your elbows to maybe sink into your calf muscles, leaning your belly button or your heart center towards your feet together. And again, stillness is great, so if you'd like to just feel that sensation, stay here. If you're feeling a little bit too much or it's getting a little bit irritating in the mind, then you might rock a little bit from side to side, tilting. I'm not a fan of the butterfly legs where people kind of flap their knees. That's called ballistic stretching, but of course lots of us have learned that, so if it's in your practice, you can do what you like. Let's start to come up to center. We're in external rotation, so now we're going to change to internal rotation on the right leg by coming into Mringasana or deer position. So we're going to rotate towards the left and turn the right knee in. Some people like this pose a lot. It's not my favorite. I can't get my right hip on the ground at all here, so I'm definitely in the externally rotated tribe of people. But we're going to try a couple little twists here. So we'll take our hands, we're going to take our left hand to the right knee or the right thigh, and the right hand to the mat behind us. And we're just going to try to relax through the shoulders and breathe 3 more times. In and out. With the out, you can certainly try to twist a bit further. Let's do that again. And then we'll start to unwind, coming over to the right and twisting in that direction, which you might have a little bit more availability in. So for me, I don't feel so much in my lower body here. I actually feel it through like the obliques on the right side. And we'll start to unwind. Switch your legs so the feet come back center. The left knee is going to turn in as the right knee turns out. We call this deer pose. I've also called it mermaid or pinwheel, so there's a lot of different names for it. So let's do the kind of awkward twist first. So right hand to the left thigh, left knee. I'm not quite that flexible there. And then the left hand comes behind to support. And we'll just take 3 breaths. So with every inhale, it's like your spine grows up taller, shoulders release, and with the exhale, we twist to the left. 2 more breaths. And from here, we'll twist to the right. So support yourself there. And I have to kind of rotate a little bit out so that it gives me more room to rotate. This is a very nice yin yoga posture too, so if you like the way this feels through the core, through the top of that left hip, you could always kind of relax onto some pillows or a big bolster built up here and kind of chill out in that pose for a couple minutes. For today, for this time, we'll bring ourselves back up, bring our legs back to center, support yourself on your hands, and drop your knees to the right, to the left, back and forth a couple times. Going back to those window wipers. And from here, we are going to shift to hands and knees. So bring yourself onto all fours. I like to use a blanket underneath my knees when I'm here. Hands come onto the mat. Fingers are spread, so the mounds of the knuckles, which are on the palm, that's what you want to be pushing into the mat. Inhale and reach your heart forward, drop your shoulders down, head lifts out of the chest. Exhale, round your spine, look back. Let's try 4 more of those. Inhaling for cow and exhaling for cat. Think about your lower body, so your tailbone lifting, that's anterior pelvic tilt. And with cat, it's posterior pelvic tilt. 1 more. 5 total. More if you want. All right. So we're going to start with our right leg. Take your right foot and kick it up towards the sky. That's called active cow. As you round your spine, bring your knee towards your elbow. That's called active cat. Inhale, look forward. Exhale, round your spine, knee towards the elbow. 3 more. Beautiful. We're going to lift that leg up towards the ceiling and then try to help your right foot forward into a lower lunge, crescent moon lunge. Hands can be on the floor here at first as you arrange your body in the right position. So you want to make sure that your right knee stays over your ankle. We do want to make sure that it doesn't do something like this. My knee is going past my toe, and now my heel's lifting. So we got to keep that knee nice and at a right angle. From here, let's start to stretch the front of our left hip by bringing our hands up to our knee. You might feel plenty there. To take it a step further, hands can come up to the heart center. A step further from there, hands reach up towards the sky. Lengthen and lift. Exhale, lunging a bit deeper through the right knee. Inhale, lifting. Exhale, lunging. 1 more. Hands are going to come down. We're switching back into a half split. So we roll back onto, again, the right knee. Or I'm sorry, left knee, but the right heel is on the ground. So if you're not quite there, you can come up to kneeling and physically kick your right leg out so that the toes are lifted. And we'll begin to fold over top the leg. If your arms aren't long like mine, use a block. And then I like to internally rotate and externally rotate that leg a little bit just to see what you feel. See what you can get moving in there. Feel all those hamstring tendons on the back of the leg. Perfect. From here, we're going to be moving into a gate position. So we want to lift up. I'm going to use a block for support just in case. I'm going to turn the right toes forward, and that means I have to rotate on my left knee. Sorry, I wore baggy pants today. So, left knee is on the floor, right foot is out to the side so that your pinky toe, is lifted. Arms come out to the side, it's called gate position. So we're going to open the gate by leaning our right hand down towards our right leg, left hand reaching up and over. Awesome work. Come on back up to center. Here's an assisted side plank. So your left hand can come down to a block, right hand up to the sky. If that's not enough room, bring your left hand all the way down to the floor. So here's the assisted side plank. To build some hip strength, some core strength, you'll lift your right foot up off the ground. You're welcome to stay there. Some people like to do a Pilates little pump with their leg. 5 or 10 of those really helps to build the muscle in the side of the hip. Great work. And then we'll start to fan our way back up to center. From here, we're going to bring that right knee back underneath us. Rotate back to the top of your mat, and let's take a puppy pose, or melted heart anahadasana as an intermission. So separate your knees a little bit, walk just your hands forward, melt through your elbows, your chest, your forehead, the hips stay just as they are, and we breathe. This becomes a back bend as our chest and belly are reaching down towards the floor. With our next in-breath, roll back up to your palms, walk them back into place. We'll do all of that on the left side. So, kick your left foot up towards the ceiling and look ahead. That's called active cow. Exhale, round your spine, bring your knee to your elbow or through your elbows, active cat. Inhale, lift it up. Exhale, round. 3 more. Awesome. From here, we're going to kick that leg up and help the left leg through. So if you can just kind of lunge it forward if that's in your practice. Some people need to reach back and physically help their left leg into that lunge. From here, find the right alignment. Make sure that your left knee stays over your ankle. Feel the stretch in your right hip flexor. And let's make our way up to the top of our left knee. If that becomes too much, go back to the beginning posture. There's always ways to make it easier and ways to make it more difficult. If you still don't have enough stretch, you really need that challenge today, especially maybe on this side, hands can come to the heart. If you'd like, perhaps the arms can sweep out or even up over your head for that true low crescent lunge. And let's take a couple more breaths, just feeling the stretch, whichever variation you like. We've got 4 of them to work with here. All right. So from here, and I'll show you how to transition, and then I'll move my body so I'm facing the camera. So we're going to be going into a half split first. So we're going to lengthen that left leg and lift the toes, folding over. And if you're there and that's just not quite possible, then you can actually kick your left leg out so that your knee is straight, and then fold over top. Some people cannot reach the floor with their fingers here, and that's okay. That's why we have yoga blocks available, or even old phone books and stuff. Stools next to us so that the ground can be lifted to meet our requirements. So you should feel a stretch here somewhere between your left heel, maybe your knee, that's where I feel it the most, and your ischial tuberosity. So something I see a lot in my yoga classes is almost like a competition comes into play, and people want to get lower to the ground. So they start to actually collapse and sit down on their right heel. It's a different pose, It's not Ardha Hanumanasana though. And so that's what we're moving with. And so I don't feel any kind of stretch here. And so what I'm going to do, that becomes like a half hero's stretch, is I'm going to come back up to this kneeling pose, and I'm going to imagine the anterior pelvic tilt in my pelvis. So imagine that your pelvis is a bowl and we're tilting it forward. So the tailbone, the sits bones are reaching back, and that should really open up the hamstring. Please remember to keep moving, so if you're just listening to me chat at myself, then you can keep rocking back and forth here, especially if that stretch is really overwhelming. So now we're kind of surfing it out from Ardha Hanumanasana, half split, to Anjaneyasana, which is the low lunge. Alright, so from here we're going into the gate pose. So come on up, kneeling onto your right knee. Turn your left toes forward and rotate on your right knee. So this is what the posture looks like from behind. So I'm going to rotate my body to be facing the camera. So we're finding that gate pose. Left leg out, right knee is bent, arms out to the side, and we're going to open the gate. Leaning over, reaching that left hand down the left leg, right hand either up to the sky or over your head, so that you can really feel how the waist connects into the hip, plus feeling that left inner thigh. Inhale and fan your way back up, tilting to the right. Left hand reaches up to the sky. Maybe you start to do some Pilates work here where you lift your left leg. Perhaps a couple pumps through that leg. About 5 or 10, you can start to feel it burning. And when we burn, you know you're building muscle and burning fat. Just drop that foot back down, help yourself back up, bring the hands back forward, and we'll rotate back to the top of our mat, and we're going to come into either child's pose or extended puppy after we've now kind of stretched out both sides. So child's pose is a little bit closer to the mat, a little bit closer to the ground. Where extended puppy resembles a playful puppy with the hips lifted and the heart melted. Both are good. We just have to figure out what works for our own body. We'll start to roll up one more time here to hands and knees. Tuck your toes. Roll up into downward facing dog. If you are using a blanket, it can stay where it is, or you can roll it out to the side. We're going to just start to pedal those heels. Press your right heel down as you bend your left knee. You might even lift your left toes. Press your left heel down, bend your right knee, maybe even lifting your toes. Try it a couple times. Some will call this walking the dog. Just stretching those calves out. All right. Reach your right leg up towards the sky. Tripod downward facing dog. Bend that knee. Look towards your right hand and try to tap your right elbow with your right knee. Inhale and reach your right foot back up. Exhale and try to tap your elbow with your knee. One more. Inhale, lift it up. Exhale, elbow to the knee. Inhale, lift it up. And now we're going to step our right foot between our hands. Sometimes easier said than done. Go ahead and rotate your left toes out slightly. And we're going to take our left hand, sweep it up, right hand, sweep it up, and arrange our feet. Right toes turn forward, left toes adjust. So our toes are facing out here, and we're going to be moving into something that we call a skater stretch. So I'm going to bend my knees really deep and bring the fingertips to the floor and start to just rock out through the hips here. Walk your hands over to the right knee. bend a lot, and maybe your right heel lifts. So as you do that, maybe your heel lifts so that your left toes can lift. So now we're getting left inner thigh. Stay close to the ground, support yourself. If you have a couple blocks, you could use the blocks to keep your hands a little higher. So now we're going to rotate the left toes down, press through the right, and move over to the left side. So walking your hands to the left, your left heel might lift as you sink into that knee, lifting your right toes. Now if you've got knee injuries, you won't go as deep as me, and that's okay. We're just moving our body. So we're going to go back to the right. Walking the hands over, lifting the left toes. Walking the hands over to the left, lifting the right toes. Couple more times. Eventually, we all will get good enough and have good balance and be able to do this with no hands. That's the challenge. Woo! Come on back to center, right in the middle. Turn your toes out, lengthen your legs, and rotate your toes to the point where, your legs are comfortable. Send your hips back. Look back behind you. Add a twist. Right hand to the ground. Left hand rotates up to the sky. Open your chest a little bit. Reach up for an invisible rope with your left hand. Big inhale. As you exhale, switch it out. Left hand to the floor. Right hand sweeps up and open. One more breath here. Exhale, drop the hands down. All right, so turn the toes out a little bit, bend through those knees, and roll your upper body up. We're now going to be rotating to the back side of our mat towards the left toes. So all my 10 toes are going to rotate towards the left, towards the back side of the mat. We'll come into a lunge. Notice how my back right heel lifts. And we're going to take that left leg and extend it all the way up towards the sky. And then we're going to bend the knee and roll forward and try to tap your left elbow with your left knee. Inhale, lift it back up. Exhale, left elbow, left knee. Inhale, lift it back up. Last time. Beautiful. We'll step our left foot between the hands. We're rotating the feet forward. Coming back to a center straddle. Walk your feet closer together. Not too close. You want them a little wider than hip distance apart. And we're going to be doing a yogi squat. It is not my favorite pose, I'm not going to lie. So I take my blanket and I have it folded up so that I have about an inch of height. And I'm going to bring it between my feet. And step my heels right on the edges. Knees need to follow the toes. So again, knee injuries, you might come down about halfway and maybe you hold yourself on a block or on a chair. If you're okay in the knees, you can start to sink down. Some people will actually sit on their block. But I find that having just that little bit of lift underneath the ankles does the work for me. So the hands can come together. Elbows might come to the insides of the knees. And we don't want to collapse like I am through my chest. We want to sit up tall, draw the shoulder blades back and down, and breathe. Beautiful. If you need to stand back up, please do that. If you need to find your way down to the floor from here, then do that. So some people like to lengthen up first. Shake the hips from side to side. Some people will just come right down onto their back from that yogi squat. Kind of feed their hands behind them and drop down. So you find your way. We're going to come onto our back. And so we put a lot of blood into our legs. We're going to end here with legs up the wall. So if you're like me and you have a wall, you can use it. So turn around so that your butt is as close to the wall as you can, and your heels go up on the wall. That's it. Now if you don't have a wall, then what you'll do is you'll want to use your yoga block. So take your yoga block, or maybe a rolled up, I'll say folded up blanket. Come back to your original bridge. Lift your hips. On the lowest level, slide that block underneath your sacrum, and you might have to adjust it a couple times to find the right height. And then we'll push our hips back into that block, and if it's not right, adjust your hips again. Find that spot for you, and we'll extend our legs. Just take 10 deep breaths, letting all that blood circulate down and out of your feet and legs into the rest of your body. Imagine healing blood flow, healing energy moving down from your heart into your pelvis and up, forcing that energy all the way to the top of your toes and back down into the hips. From here, if you're using the block, bring your feet back down to the floor. Press through your feet, lifting your hips, lowering your back all the way down to the mat. If you're using a wall, you might just roll to a side or find your way back onto your back, rotating to the side maybe. Check it out, see how that low back is feeling, how your legs are feeling, rocking from right to left. And you're welcome to press pause here. You're welcome to take a Shavasana. If not, then roll yourself up to a seated pose, maybe with crisscross legs or your legs straight out. Take a moment to sit upright at the end of your practice, whether or not you choose to do the 10 minutes of Shavasana. I want to just thank each of you for pressing play today, for rolling out the mat and stretching out your lower body with me. I hope that it's beneficial and that your legs, hips, and back feel much better now. Thank you so much. Namaste.